JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Thursday, July 24th, 9:02 a.m. Just talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from the S&P pretty much flat as a pancake or mixed. S&P futures up about 0.02%. Lots of things, right? So yesterday afternoon, well, markets yesterday, right? So gapped higher, melted into the noon hour. Then you had news or reports that the EU and the US were close to a trade deal with pretty much the similar parameters as the Japan US deal, right? 15%. Uh, Markets rallied and then it kind of held the gains. Melted at the end of the day, closed at highs. Boom. I mean, just remarkable stuff. I think it was the 12th record close for the S&P for the year. And, all amongst all these possible uh, headwinds, right? And to me, it's like the fear is always that there's no more headwinds, no more walls of worry to climb. But today we get PMI data is at 9:45, I believe, 9:45, 10 a.m. So I don't know if that'll move markets much. And now all of a sudden, since there's not much in the way of catalyst today, the 1 p.m. 10-year auction is also going to garner a lot of attention with yields still elevated. Who knows if that'll derail the market rally? I always say new highs beget new highs, right? Once you break into all-time high territory, there's less resistance, right? The sellers have already been churned through. Someone's not going to sell. Someone doesn't have a like stop. It's the pressure, right? So unless someone has limits at severely highs that they put in a while ago, I mean, that's just how it works. So, uh, I still am on the, I'd say as well yesterday, like the higher we go, the bigger the probability that at one morning we're going to wake up and futures going to be down 1 or 2% for no other reason. But for now, it's kind of like all systems go. After the close yesterday, Tesla reported what everybody thought they're going to report, a miserable quarter. And then you get the conference call, and Musk says, oh, it looks like things are going to be tough for Q4, Q3, Q4, maybe even Q1 next year. And then it wasn't like a sis boom bah kind of conference call that they've had in the past. So, not saying it's bad for them. I think there's still a huge opportunity. Maybe a dip play, and I don't know if today, but maybe down the line. But then on the flip side was Google. Google pretty much dismissed every concern that people have been chattering about for the last however many months that that AI is going to supplant them as the search with their search engine dominance. And it actually looks like the flip side that their shift has helped their traffic and revenues, right? So I think it was like 9-10% year-over-year growth just in the search platform monetization. And then they talked about CapEx spend, right? That's the big number everybody's looking at. We'll see what happens with Meta and Microsoft, but they upped it from 75 billion this year to 85 billion. So another $10 billion just floating around going to the like Broadcoms, the semi names, the energy plays. So we'll see if that's the next leg for those names as well. But anyway, good stuff here today. We'll just hopefully we could chop around, find some support. Yields go down would be nice. Dollar strength would be nice. Taking a look at the amount of stocks trading over that 200-day moving average on the S&P after I guess a month and a half of pretty much holding flat, right? And I kept saying over the last couple of weeks, well, if you're a bear, you're saying, wow, the market breadth is horrible. This is it. It's set for downturn. To me, it's like, wow, there's more upside opportunity. Not all the stocks are not in a long-term uptrend yet. And sure enough, there's the amount of stocks trading over there, a 200-day moving average, 67%, right at 2025 highs. And we'll see what happens here today, but I would assume we'll be at 2025 highs there as well. All right, so that's kind of overall market. So now just quick on some individual names. And some days I like to call harvest days. Yesterday was one of those harvest days. Edit rallied for the third or fourth session in a row, closing up nearly 3% over that 330 resistance. I used the move to close some of my January strikes out for nearly 100% to cover costs. I was mentioned on the rant yesterday. I mentioned on the rant yesterday afternoon that I might look to get some closer strikes, depending. We'll see what happens if there's continuation today. Maybe I'll look to get some September strikes, inexpensive ones, and then I'll just continue to hold the Januaries as well. Because at some point you have to think this gets FOMO. When you look at the candles, I mean, it's a penny stock by all definition. It's under $5, but there really hasn't been like a huge candle, like 15-20% move. I think that comes at some point. So that's that. So that was edit. And then RH, right at the open, you had the Japan US deal. So I don't know if that just spurred rallies and names that there were tariff concerns about. RH is definitely one of those front and center. Open at like 218, butted around to 220 for a couple minutes, and boom, all the way up to 223. Used to move to close some more of my calls out for over 400%. And I just held the rest. I just have a couple left, and the thought process here was that I think it trades north of 230. If that's the premise, and I think it, if it doesn't happen today, I'll probably close them out. Then I figure I would hold. I'm already riding free with some profits. Um, and then I'll use like 218 or so at the open this morning as kind of like a stop, and the calls are still up 400%. We'll see how they open here this morning, but thankfully some profits on RH. It's been up and down on RH. Some have been some monster trades, some have been tough, but nice when it works out. And then Carlytics, right? So, I keep talking about if it trades at one times revenues, that's a $5.42 stock or something like that. Added some calls this week. More is like a sympathy move, right? The meme craze, I thought, well, has been moving up some names that have been oversold or possibly undervalued, undiscovered. The donuts, the rock, the rocket, obviously the open. But to me, some of these names don't have sticking power, right? And we saw some of those moves yesterday sell off, right? The donuts selling off from highs. But then you have Carlytics. And to me, if worst case scenario with this meme craze, it brings eyes to the name, which I think is undervalued. And best case scenario, the squeeze continues and more people pile in. So it's like one of those heads you win, tails the other person loses kind of thing when you do a when you do a coin toss. That's kind of the situation I think Carlytics is in. So still holding into it. So when I got those strikes, the thought process was I got the early strikes, and then I went and got those October calls, just because I figured if there's continuation, premium is going to ramp up, right? So thankfully, it's opened in the green, $3, dipped all the way to 270 at 11 o'clock, and then it reversed, closed right pretty much at the highs of the day. Use the moves close some of my August strikes out for over 200%. I'll probably, depending on what it does today, if it gets over 320, I'll probably close the last of the August, and I might look for some other strikes here. But it's a name you start looking. I think it's 460 or so, then all the way up to 640. I forget the exact numbers. I wouldn't be surprised if it trades up near there. And even if it did that, I could look at it and say, wow, it's not overvalued or what have you. It does well. It has 60 million in cash, like 240 million in debt. But if it returns to growth, anyway. All right, rants rants for another day. JOBY, if any word could describe JOBY recently, resilient. I mean, I'm surprised only down 1% this week, and to put it in perspective, it was up like 50% the week before. So considering that run, considering it's still not a revenue generating company, to see it hold up here, I think that means that more highs are coming. So I'll wait for all-time highs to hit. I still have the October strikes. There's no reason to get nuts, right? Because at some point there'll be a pull. I mean, I keep saying it, but at some point there will be. I don't want to be giving away the profits. So I'll continue to look for opportunities on that one. Google earnings after the close yesterday, kind of like the bear argument on Reddit is that AI is going to destroy Reddit too, right? That folks aren't going to be clicking on links anymore when you go to do searches. Reddit's not going to come up as an option, and Reddit's going to lose traffic. It's going to lose new user opportunities, things like that. I don't think that's the case whatsoever. If anything, I think the Google earnings kind of almost dispels that possible concern. So me, I've been bullish Reddit for the last couple of months, at least since the Liberation Day lows. I think it could trade up near 155 today. So typically these moves happen early and quick on Reddit. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it rally and squeeze right at the open. So I'll be quick to try and trade it. The other issue with Reddit is the option market typically doesn't open till like 9:33 on Reddit. So those might create a barrier to trying to get some lotto calls here, but don't be surprised I had some strikes there. VKTX reported earnings after the close yesterday, and with VKTX, it's not about earnings. In all reality, it's about their updates. So updates on studies and cash position. There were no surprises. Lackluster. I mean, the CEO, if you follow VKTX for a while, it's almost like frustrating because it's you want as a leader of a company. I mean, it's good on one hand to have a conservative leader, right? Because when they exceed estimates, it's a really good thing, right? But at the same token, as a someone that wants to see the company do well or perform, or at least have some optimism, you want your CEO to kind of exude that, and it seems like he just doesn't. But the issue, I wouldn't say the issue, but a little disappointing is on the conference call, they just reiterated that the data for the oral GLP-1 data is going to come in the second half of this year, which by all definition means it could come out December 31st, right? I mean, which would disappointing. And then there was someone who emailed investor relations and they said, oh no, they don't have the data yet. It's still being parsed or what have you. So just a little disappointing. Moral of the story, I'm just going to hold up my August strikes. Already locked some in, but disappointing I mean, they're going to open disappointing again this morning. And then as we get closer to expiration, maybe I'll look to roll out if there's no data. But it's kind of like, to me, the be all end all for VKTX. If the data doesn't move the stock, it's one of those names I'll just put on the shelf, not waste any mental energy on that one. Trip announced earnings date August 7th. Still September strikes. And if you take a look at the chart, it almost looks like it's chopping or consolidating for the next leg, right? You can make a setup. It's actually got a better bull flag setup than Reddit does. So uh, don't be surprised if I add more strikes on strength here today. And then last but not least, SERV Robotics. I mean, sitting here flat in the pre-market. At some point, this catches FOMO. 13, I think it's 13.75, then all the way up to 18. Just a matter of time. What did I don't know if it was Tesla was saying when they're, food delivery, right? I mean, it's just front and center. And this, all right, rants for other days. Also today you have POTUS is going to be touring the Federal Reserve building, right? The construction. So the good thing is that this happens at 4 o'clock, or that's what the schedule says. I would assume, and based on previous experiences, you would think it's probably gonna be like 4:20, 4:30, because typically when they have their schedule, his schedule doesn't happen on time. It's always pushed back. So that's one, but just be aware he may make some comments, or there might be some event that happens at the Federal Reserve building after the close today in regards to Powell. So definitely keep it in the back of your head. Shenanigans. And the other thing is you look at the markets are at all-time highs. He's getting trade deals done. I'm like, this is the perfect time for him to unleash some kind of surprise. Just my opinion. And not only that, he's under pressure now with the Epstein files, right? So you already saw it yesterday at the press conference. Press secretary, you had Tulsi come on talk about this whole Obama thing. They might file charge or whatever it is. But to me, it's like almost like they're trying to change the focus on some other things as opposed to the Epstein files. I would not be surprised that they wouldn't use today's touring of the Federal Reserve building to kind of unleash some kind of surprise announcement to remove the spotlight from this Epstein files and onto something else. As crazy as that sounds, would not rule it out. I was shocked as heck on Liberation Day, so I hope that's not the case. But some reason it's in the back of my head. I'm like, are they going to use this as another opportunity to kind of like remove the spotlight? I hope not. I hope not. Hope the market finds some footing here today, holds its ground. Maybe we get up to 636 on the spine tomorrow and get into the weekend and then head into another very busy earnings week. All right, let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.